Welcome to the Keys to the City podcast, where the kingdom enables your success. I'm your host, Christian Graham. Welcome today with Jaunt Coffee Roasters owner and founder, Jimmy Silva. What's going on, Jimmy?
Not much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. I'm excited to have you on. For those of you that don't know, Jaunt Coffee Roasters is located in the Marilani's Makers District, where the MK Lab is hosted at as well. They're just on the front side of the building. We're located on the back side of the building.
That's right. Just a few steps away from each other.
Yeah. Funny story about that is actually you are the reason why we're actually here. What was it? 2023. Yeah. January of 2023 is when you guys were still at the small location.
Yeah. A few doors down.
121, I think it was, right?
134.
Or 134. Yeah. And we were like, man, this is a super dope spot. And it was our first time having you guys, trying you guys out. I forgot where we were coming from. I think we were coming from a Restaurant Depot run, and we were heading back to Smackin' to go get food, or to drop off supplies. And we were like, oh, you know what? Like, let's just go check out what's actually in this Makers District, And so we go in. We go and hit up Jaunt's, and we wait in the long line that's always there, and it's just a small warehouse space that you guys like really built out nice. I was like really impressed with like the mezzanine and stuff like that. I was like, are people able to sit up there? Like, what's going on? Yeah, soon to find out. Like, no, you're not allowed to do that. But I was like, man, this would be really dope for Steph, my wife, to have her photography studio. And at the time we were renting out an office space, and our middle daughter was still in daycare. And we were like, if we got rid of the office space and got rid of the daycare, like we'd probably be able to afford just having our own little warehouse space that, we'd be paying just like a little bit more for, and we'd have like a full warehouse space. And so we're like, this would be really cool to have a photography studio in here for you. And so we go on and we, submit. And it turns out that Wendy and Brittany were our office property managers. And so funny. there was a wait list. Yeah, super small world. And like there was a wait list to get into one of the suites at the time. And but then this space was going to be leaving by March. And so they were like, if you want, we can get you signed on as soon as they leave in March, but you just have to be ready. Like, it's just going to be as is. And we were like, oh my gosh, like that's so soon. Like we just went to go get coffee. We just went to go get some bomb coffee. And then, March comes around, and, we end up signing on, and we were like, okay, well, what do we do now? We thought we were going to have like one of your small compact, studio spaces like 134 was, but then we end up getting like the same size as like your guys' new location, and we were like, okay, well, how do we fill this space, and so my wife was like fighting for this whole thing to be a photography studio. And, sure enough, like, we're big on our faith and everything. And so like we spent time like praying on it, and like, what are we going to do with this space? How are we going to best utilize the space? And then MK actually stands for Marikairos, which means the most opportune time to put your love, soul, and creativity into what you do. And so it's an opportunity for us to like activate and multiply people in and through their gifts, like whatever gift that you have. And so that's why I was like, Steph, like it can't just be a photography studio. And so, we end up doing the music studio, the photography studio, the podcast studio, and then, the print shop. Yeah, the print shop. But yeah, it all stemmed from our first visit at Jaunt's back in January 2023. You guys were the ones that like inspired us to get a space here at the Makers District.
Yeah.
And so
life will do that to you.
Yeah, And so without further ado, Jimmy, what inspired you to become a coffee roaster and to start Jaunt's?
What inspired me? Well, first, I got into coffee kind of by accident.
Okay.
I had never really drank coffee my entire life until I was like 30.
Wow.
It was the first time I actually drank some coffee.
You're not 30?
Me? No, I'm not 30.
How old are you now?
I'm 40.
40?
Yeah.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, I'm 40.
Okay.
So about 10 years ago, and that's about when our coffee business started. And it was started by my wife
Okay.
in Mission Valley. So she got
Morning
Bird Coffee.
Bird. Okay.
Yeah, so it was like a 130 square foot coffee space.
The kiosks? Or,
yeah, like a kiosk,
okay.
kind of what you see like at airports or when you go to office parks.
Yeah.
Kind of see like a coffee cart outside.
Yeah.
That's what we had. And that's how we started. So my wife got the opportunity to open one up.
Okay.
And at the time, I was actually doing an internship for a company in Little Italy doing digital marketing. So I was doing that.
Wow.
And then at the end of 3 months, they offered me a job. But in between that time, I was helping my wife in the mornings at the coffee cart because she opened it by herself and she needed help because, like everyone starts their morning off at the same time. They come down in big groups. It's hard for one person to handle that much. It's overwhelming. So I would help her because my schedule or my internship was flexible like that.
Yeah.
So then I worked with her and I was just really enjoying working with my hands, talking to people, working with my wife, spending more time with her and getting a sense of what it's like to actually have a business.
Yeah.
And internship came up. They offered me a job, but then I declined it because I just thought, well, I really love working with my wife and doing this coffee thing. So that's what I'm going to focus on. Because until then, I'm from Portugal, so I moved back and forth quite a bit.
Okay.
And so when I moved here, I moved to San Francisco, and I lived in San Francisco for about 5-6 years. That's where I met my wife. And then I always had it in my head, like, you have to make something out of yourself.
Yeah.
What is that going to be? I put myself through school, while working full-time jobs, and, worked in grocery, worked at hotels and cafes and whatnot.
Yeah.
But it came to a point when I hit like 28, 29, 30. It's like, all right, like you got to make something out of yourself.
Wow.
And what is that going to be? I was trying everything,
yeah.
And coffee just happened to be the vehicle to make that happen. Yeah. So I think it kind of chose me more than I chose coffee.
Wow.
Yeah.
So coffee is the story and Jaunt is the guide, right? That's the mission statement or the kind of just the little tagline that you guys have. So talk to me a little bit about like the coffee story, like since you've done a lot of traveling, I saw on your website that you've been to Mexico and Colombia and you went to Europe and things like that for coffee. So talk to me a little bit more about like the in-depths of what it was like to kind of be, in the coffee fields and learning about where these beans come from and, the story behind the coffee.
Yeah, that's the story behind the name as well. Jaunt. This means taking a trip for pleasure. And we had the coffee cart for about a year, and we decided to take a trip to Peru and to just learn about coffee.
Yeah.
Traveled the country, of course, and stayed at a coffee farm for about 4 or 5 days. And we picked coffee and see what the process is from seed to cup.
Yeah.
And what the farmers and the producers go through and the pickers and how much of hard work it is.
Yeah.
And just learning about this product that everybody consumes and that we love.
Yeah.
So that was the initial step. And then about a year later, I went to Mexico and I worked and watched the process there as well. And then a few years later, I went to Colombia and did the same thing, just to learn about coffee and seeing what different producers are doing, hearing their stories. And before that, I'm from Portugal. Like I said, I traveled around Europe for a little bit, went to different, capitals of Europe, to coffee shops and roasteries. And that's where the name comes from, Jaunt, because I was taking all these trips for education and for coffee pleasure per se.
Yeah.
So that's why the name. Yeah, and it really opens your eyes to what happens at the farm levels and how that is the most important part of the whole chain, is what the coffee farmers are doing and all their hard work.
Yeah.
To me, it was eye-opening. I kind of needed that education.
Yeah.
Because it's one thing to be in the U.S. or in a Western country where it's more about consuming it.
Yeah.
When you go to the actual farms and speak to the people that work with the coffee and make it happen, how sadly the reality is completely different, and you have a much more appreciation for the product and for the culture. And also, you also, when I went there, you see how coffee culturally is different in Central and South America when they consume it. Families and communities gather around that. You go to Europe, it's kind of the same thing. They like to drink coffee after their lunch.
Yeah.
It's also more of a community-based thing. While here in the U.S., it's, oh my God, I need my coffee to start my day. It's a different relationship with a product.
Definitely. Yeah. I have a buddy, Aaron, that owns a small coffee cart. He pops up over in Balboa on Saturdays from like 10 to 2, and he gives this coffee experience. It's called Unison Coffee.
Okay.
And he really focuses on like the art of the coffee as well. And he was sharing his experiences of, what it's like to go to the coffee farms and to kind of be out there, and why it makes all the difference and the impact of why it makes sense to like sell a $7, cup of coffee, like because of all of the work that you kind of see going on behind, what it takes to really start the coffee, from seed to cup. It's like once you see that entire process, it's like, oh wow, like I have no problem paying $7 for a cup of coffee now. Like,
yeah. Well, it depends on who you say that to.
Yeah.
Because it depends on the consumer.
Yeah.
There's that consumer that is more than okay and can afford to pay a $7, $8 pour over, or pay a $7, $8 latte.
Yeah.
With the cost of everything going up, it's almost like you have to charge that. Otherwise, like, what's the point of even doing this extremely hard thing that's called owning a coffee business or a restaurant or anything in that industry?
Right.
If you can't charge those prices, because otherwise you're not making it. You're not making a rent. You can't pay your employees, your utilities, the permits, the fees, your bookkeeper, your accountant, your lawyer. It's like all these fees that the consumer doesn't see.
Yeah.
And it's not for them to see or to understand, because to them, I'm here to buy a cup of coffee.
Right.
Right. But they also need to be educated or understand that the price of it is what it is because of all the costs.
Yeah.
And it all stems also from what happens at the farm, because we need to be able to pay, fair prices for our green coffee,
right? So
that the farmers can keep doing what they're doing, and having the incentive to keep doing what they're doing, because that's much more hard work than what we're doing. If they're not making money or have incentive to do so, then we're going to see coffee disappear.
Yeah,
they'll move on to another product that they can sell.
Yeah. What's the work ethic look like on a day-to-day as a coffee roaster and business owner?
Oh gosh, it just depends on where you're at, because for me, it's probably going to look a lot different from someone that has a more established business, or someone that has grown their business to 3, 4, 5, 6 locations.
Mm-hmm.
I've decided not to do that. There's been opportunities to do so. I've always said no, because I've always wanted to focus on one location and creating a certain type of culture and standards, and being able to try to have always a good product, and not get lost in like, in my ego of like, I have 4 or 5 locations. One can carry the other. If one's not doing well, let's just make this into a big thing and perhaps sell it. That's the goal of most people, that when you see that happening, and you've seen that happen here in San Diego.
Definitely.
That's not my goal. I'd rather grow it in a different way.
Yeah.
Just like your friend that you mentioned from Unison Coffee.
Yeah, Unison Coffee.
We're working on something similar to that, as to create a special experience for our customers.
Yeah.
That's in development right now.
Awesome.
And I think, to me, there's more meaning in that. And there's more meaning in creating something small that you can't get everywhere else. And people have to come here to get it.
Yeah.
And they can't just go to anywhere in the city and get it. And to me, I think, I don't know, it kind of loses its how special it can be to go to one spot and only be able to get it there. Because once you grow, you kind of lose your hand on
Quality.
what's happening.
Yeah.
How are you going to keep those same standards and the same culture that you worked so hard to establish?
Definitely.
In 5, 6, 7 locations.
Right.
I just don't really think it's possible. Maybe someone's figured it out.
Yeah.
But to me, just knowing the in and outs of what I do when I come here.
Yeah.
And keeping, checking in with my staff pretty much every single day, checking the quality of the product, checking in with the roasting staff, the quality control, inventory, ordering, all things that should be, you have a management team that should be taking care of all that. But at the end of the day, who's looking over those management teams?
Yeah.
Because as a business owner, they are still an employee.
Accountable. Yeah. Yeah.
As much, if any employee does at least 60, 70, 80% of what you're willing to do,
It's great.
It's amazing. So don't ever think that, I don't know, finding someone that's 100% about it. I'm fortunate that I have staff that are really about our customer service, and the standards and the quality that we've imposed behind the bar. And I think that is key. And that's maybe what makes us different from other shops, being like a warming, welcoming place.
Definitely.
Our offerings, and always keeping the consumer top of mind. I think that's crucial. It's you got to go what the market is dictating, and what they want. Because as much as a lot of people romanticize and fall in love with coffee because of that croissant and that latte that they had at this really nice, aesthetically pleasing shop, and just sitting back and like, oh wow, I can do this. This is what I want to do.
Right.
It's a completely different reality once you get behind the bar and have to manage people and product. And looking at the value, and you got to make money.
Definitely.
It's not a charity. It's a lot of hard work.
Definitely.
So my day will look much different from an owner, like I said, that has a lot of locations, then that maybe they're just speaking to the regional manager or their general managers. That's, to me, where I like to be hands-on, and I like to have like a sense of what's happening, because I'm fine with one shop. I'm happy. You know? So
same here with Smackin'. We only have one location, and that was one of the biggest driving points, because we've been offered. People have approached us. Are you publicly traded? Like, are you going to be selling shares? Are you looking for investors? Are you looking to sell? Are you looking to franchise? And so we've been approached many times too, and even by family, and we're like, we're not looking for outside investment right now, because we really want to scale out, these systems and these cultures to like make sure that it's consistent and quality across. And the biggest thing with Smackin' especially is that it's an ode to my grandma, my late grandma. So Smackin' is an acronym, as are like all my other businesses, but Smackin' stands for Pseudo Mesa Authentic Chamorro Kitchen. And so Pseudo is my grandma's maiden name, and then Mesa is my grandfather. And so, there's just a direct, kind of family tie and representation that comes with, upholding, everything that comes with Smackin'. It's not just the distinct ingredients. It's not just the quality of the food, but the hospitality, the island hospitality, the Pseudo Mesa, hospitality. Like, we want people to really feel that they're at home, and really just even with Maricaros Media and our marketing agency is that that's our biggest point, is that we feel that customers need to feel at home, right? We really want to drive home brand presence, brand awareness, brand positioning, and let consumers know that you're a part of the family. Like, every time that you come in, that you feel at home, that you have this authentic experience, when you come to dine at Smackin' or, whatever business that, we're kind of helping to scale out with their business. And so with that being said, what are some of the challenges that you've kind of faced with employees and, driving home that culture and customer service? Because you said that if you can get 60, 70, 80%, like you're doing great. And I wholeheartedly agree with that. What are some of the challenges that you might have faced of kind of managing employees to getting them to a place where it's like 60, 70, 80% of what you ideally want? And how do you measure that success?
Oh, it depends on who comes on. And a lot of times it's whatever stage that person is in their life. A 19, 20-year-old is going to be in a different stage of a 24, 25-year-old or a 30 or 31-year-old or whoever comes in.
Right.
So you got to see what's going to make sense for that person.
Mm-hmm.
What are they about? Mm-hmm. What's their objective? What's their short-term objective, long-term objective? What is it that you want out of life? Mm-hmm. What do you want out of this place? How's it going to give you meaning? What meaning are you seeking? Mm-hmm. So I need to understand where they're coming from. Mm-hmm. It's fine if they're coming in, I just need a job and need to make some money. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, you have to show up. Mm-hmm. And these are our standards and this is our culture. Mm-hmm. If that's not what you want to abide by, then you can take that approach that you have of these jobs and take it somewhere else, because we won't really put up with it.
Yeah.
Sometimes they come from more corporate places. Mm-hmm. that certain things are okay, certain behaviors are okay, certain ways of thinking are okay.
Right.
And it's not okay here.
Yeah.
So you can just go find a job somewhere else where you think you can just do whatever you want, or, mm-hmm. But it will depend on the person very much so. If they're about it, if they want to be about it, if they see themselves having a career in this industry, in coffee, if they would like that. Mm-hmm. It just really, it's hard to say. Sometimes you think, oh yeah, I hired the right person. But then, an hour or two into it, they can tell me whatever they want in the interviews, but then their physical actions and how they carry themselves will just indicate am I going to have problems with this person 3 months down the line?
Yeah.
Or it's if I see that, then I just cut it off then, because there's no more time to be wasted.
Do you set a probationary period for your employees upon hire?
I always say it's going to be about a trial, a few shifts a week or so, mm-hmm. just to get a sense of them. Mm-hmm. That's the same thing with the interview, just to get a sense of the person. Yeah. Because we can teach you how to pull good shots of espresso, how we do things here and all that, but I can't teach someone to have good character, mm-hmm. to be respectful, mm-hmm. to understand that you need to respect and be about the same standards and culture that we've instilled here. Mm-hmm. That's taken a long time and worked so hard to get to
build. Yeah.
To then have somebody come in and just debacle everything. It's nah. It's we just cut it off. And
it just takes one.
It just takes one.
It just takes one.
It takes one because it's so easy to grasp onto negativity, mm-hmm.
Right.
Stuff that's happening at home or stuff at work because this person said that, or I'm having a hard time because of my boyfriend and this and that. And then all of a sudden it hits somebody else, and easy to pity and empathy and victimization is so easy to oh yeah, they understand me, they get me.
Right.
And it's just so easy to grab onto that and just not really stop caring about things.
Yeah.
But I try to talk to my staff to see work as a place of escape, where they can come and bring their best selves, and try to get the best out of here and make those friendships and connections here. Because there's 5 or 6 other people that are dependent on what you do.
Yeah.
So if you don't show up and are about what we're doing, then you can take that somewhere else.
Yeah.
It's been, I think that is perhaps one of few reasons why we are as successful as we are, mm-hmm. because of the culture and caring about customers. And when people walk through the door, they're acknowledged because they're human.
Right.
And maybe this is the best part of their day.
Yeah.
Coming in, saying hello, talking to the baristas, drinking a coffee, having a pastry. Maybe that's the highlight of the week.
Honest to God, the first time, we went to John's, obviously we were like amazed by the atmosphere, right? We were captured by the atmosphere, and we were like, okay, we want to do something like this, but for Steph's photography business. But one of the biggest things was Chris and Paul at the time, at the old location, they really made us feel at home. And so we started coming back. Like I think in that first week, we went back 3 or 4 times, and we're the type of people, we don't make it this far, right, by necessarily getting like, 7 cups of coffee a week, right? And and spending a lot. So, at the time we were like pretty frugal, we like investing, we invest into business and stuff. So we would typically just like make coffee at home, or we would, go get like just a cheap black, somewhere. And but this, it really drove home on the experience side of things to like, okay, I'm comfortable spending, this $6-7 if I'm able to just get greeted and have a conversation with, with Chris and Paul, and now with like Diego, especially shout out to Diego. We love Diego. I love Diego. And just the rest of the team too. I really do understand that whole culture that, you guys implement within Jaunt, when, from entering the door to going and make the purchase, and then, retrieving your cup or your burrito or empanada or any other specialty from, the pickup station. And, just, I really recognize that for sure.
And that's, to me, it's been crucial. It's like that genuine interaction, it's not put on to like, oh, I got to say hello to this person, and I don't want to really answer any of your questions. Like, what is it that you want to order? Like, let's get it over with type thing. It's people with good hearts. Yeah. That's like what I was saying. Like you can't teach that. Yeah. You can't teach sincerity and being about others. So a lot of our staff you'll see have kind of this innate like friendliness. And to my good fortune, also work ethic. Yeah. And like those two. But yeah, the people you mentioned, they were with me for a long time, and they are what like the epitome of Jaunt is. And a lot of people are like, you guys are always busy. You always have a line. Yeah. How do people even find you here? Right. And it's like, this is years in the making. Yeah. It wasn't just from like night to day. It took a while, especially where we're located. Yeah. We're not like in a trendy neighborhood or a trendy part of town. Yeah. We're in an industrial part of town, a lot of blue collar, like some white collar. But we've been able to attract a lot of the community here. Yeah. And it starts with good product and good people. Yeah. It always starts with the good product. And then like you said, it's followed up by the good people for any business, right? Yeah, because for anything you do. For any business, like you can, I mean, I wouldn't say like McDonald's is the best product ever, but people have such a deep relationship with the hamburger, with the McDonald's, McDouble or whatever it may be, the chicken nuggets. And so they always come back, even though customer service wise, it's horrible. Well, it's a different type of customer. It's going to be that value searching type of customer that will go to McDonald's. And like, if you're looking for more like craft burgers or whatnot, right, you're going to go somewhere else, and you're going to spend the money for it. Right. Talk to me. So we talked a little bit about the story. Talk to me a little bit about the brand. You guys are going through a rebranding right now, but one of the most crucial parts about a brand is knowing who your audience is and how to really identify with those people so that they feel heard, they feel seen, they feel recognized, and they become obsessed with who you are, and you really stamp that legacy, especially being one that only wants to have one location and doesn't want to dilute. How do you focus on keeping that retention and that customer obsession within Jaunt? And who that specific person is that you look for? we wanted always from the beginning wanted to be a shop for everyone, for that blue collar worker that we got guys from SDG&E coming in, construction workers, people from the industry that work around here, for the white collar people that work at Qualcomm, biotechs, and all that, and for our neighborhood that's literally right up the street at Mira Mesa.
Yeah.
The branding, I can't say that the branding was thought up thinking of them, especially in the beginning with very little resources.
Yeah.
But now I think the branding happened naturally with the influx of customers coming in, and the branding is almost the customer interaction. It's the customer service, and that's what created the brand, not as much as like what the logo looks like or what the colors look like or what is the bag going to look like. It's mostly our personal brand, our like us as humans connecting, and that's why I say like some shops you go to, you feel like it's not for certain people. It's maybe too trendy, or they look a certain way, they act a certain way. But we've always been one to be for everybody. I see nowadays, like especially on social media, where people are trying really, really hard to be trendy and be in amongst the trend of, no matter if it's a coffee shop, if it's a pastry shop, if it's a restaurant, just wanting to be together because we're all trendy. But it's like at the end of the day, it's like you got to be for your customer. And I understand that they might be about a niche, but I think they're also losing on the part about being for everyone, not being so worried about being trendy and being in that niche. Just be about like your product and being about everybody, and collaborate with everyone, and not just the trendy guys that are, got so many followers, but then perhaps you go to that shop or whatever it is and there's not many people around.
Right.
So now we are going through a rebrand, because after 6 years now, I think it needs a little bit of a facelift, just making the logo a little bit less intricate, more appealing, easier to identify. I think that's important in terms of branding.
Yeah.
Having a little bit more modern look to our bags, to our cups, especially as we're working on a different experience for customers.
Here's the cups.
New cups are coming soon. Different experience for customers on the other side and the roasting side. So it's just, just a progression of life, business life in this case, changing a little bit, keeping up with the times. So yeah, that's where that comes in. I can't really say, but I think we'll make it a lot more appealing because we're also changing up our website. So I think we're on a good path, and I think people are going to enjoy the rebranding.
What are some of the conversions that you have seen kind of take most shape in? Is it walk-ins with your retail store now that you've expanded, or is it through your website and wholesaling? Is it through
definitely
subscriptions?
Yeah, we come from humble beginnings. So we did the shop at 134 because that's where we roasted coffee, and I really didn't have any money. I'm like, well, I'm just going to open up a shop here.
Yeah.
And, small roasting, serving coffee right next to each other. And it's like, my God, the space got tight. So then we went and got fortunate to get the space. Became available, double the size, so that people can actually sit down and enjoy the coffee, so that we can have a big space for, I think it's big for a coffee shop.
No, yeah.
Some people complain that it's not big enough.
Yeah.
But,
well, when the coffee is so good, it's like, it's hard to want to stay, and then you got like seats taken up, right?
Yeah,
so,
people want to do some work because you have some you have schools, and you have a big community here, and just a lot of people do a lot of stuff around here.
Yeah.
So we expanded that because it just felt so tight in the other space now. It wasn't comfortable anymore, not for myself, not for staff.
Yeah.
And that was important to do. So we it really helped us out having that space. People can actually enjoy the coffee in the bigger space, actually sit down. And the biggest conversion has been in the shop because of the space, and we can offer more. And then that also allowed us, in terms of marketing, to target customers to come into the store more instead of e-commerce, instead of other things that we could focus on.
Yeah.
Because for a business, from us to the consumer, with nobody in between, is the biggest margin. That is where we need to be making our money.
Right.
So my focus is to bring people into the door.
Right.
There's so many coffee shops opening up around us, different parts of the city. It's like, how do we keep ourselves relevant?
Right.
That is perhaps the toughest thing that I have to work on, is to keep us relevant, creating content to keep us relevant, offerings to keep us relevant, and then the customer service for the genuine interaction, for people to feel seen, to want to come back to support us in what we do. But that is the biggest conversion. And that's why, we do different things on social media to enhance that as much as possible. Really, it's the coffee shop is what carries us. And now that we have some more space, bringing the right people along, the same way I did with the coffee shop, to enhance our presence online, or e-commerce, and wholesale, all those other aspects. These are all things I could have, focused on, but beforehand, because if you think about it, I've been doing this for 10 years now, since Morning Bird until now. And Jaunt for about 6 years. And what you mentioned about getting opportunities to expand, there's been plenty. Free rent, and you're going to be an amenity here, and you can do this and that's like, how many locations? Like, this is insane. It just feels overwhelming. And at that point, you kind of need other business partners or somebody to be able to take care of that. Part of me wants to do that. Part of me wants to expand so that we can show our brand and our culture and what we're about to other parts. But at the same time, I don't want to lose it. And that's why I think it's so important to keep just focusing on what we're doing and grow the business in other aspects, in other ways, to be able to be direct to consumer as well. To not lose our identity and what we're about, because we need it to expand. We just need to. We just have to have more locations. Like, I don't know. I don't see any Michelin stars expanding. Like, you go to that spot because that's the culture, that's the standards. It's going to be good food. And you don't see Michelin star restaurants expanding. It's like there's one spot. And that's where you go.
That's awesome.
It's just it's a mentality.
It's a different.
But other people do it differently. That's fine.
That's
too.
Cool. Yeah. To each his own.
Of course.
That's awesome. I'm born and raised here in Mira Mesa, went to Mira Mesa High, went to elementary, middle school. My house is still just 3.5 miles down the road from here, and so what made you choose to be in the Mira Mesa community and want to like kind of settle roots? Was it the cheap rent with, being here at the Makers District?
Kind of like coffee chose me. I think it was just the opportunity that the universe presented itself with a coffee roaster in that space. And at the time, like, I want to learn how to roast coffee. And for about a year or two, it was in that space was just a coffee roaster, and I would roast coffee there for Morning Bird. And then I told myself, this is where I'm going to do the shop, because I can't afford anything else. And I'll do a lot of this myself and do the best I can. And I'm just going to put my as corny as it sounds, my blood, sweat, and tears, and the 18-hour work days. And, like I still think I have PTSD from
not having
giving my complete self to make this happen. Man. I think I still, like, there's some moments that I like feel it.
That's how you know it's there, though. Like, that's how you really know, like, to me, that's the way that you can really measure like the success. It doesn't necessarily always have to equate to like the monetary side of things every time, but like, you did it. Like, a lot of people, a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners, they'll talk about it. A lot of people have great ideas, but to actually take the action on it and to actually do it, right? For me, my first day, working in Smackin', we didn't have any training, any staff. It was just family coming to support and wanting to help out for the night for our soft launch. And the line was wrapped around the building. And I worked 23 hours that day, 23 hours. And I was like, man, like, I don't know if I could do this. And my best friend was like, show must go on. And he worked with me that whole day.
Yeah.
He worked for free that whole day. And he was like, show must go on. And the next day I was like, all right, let's do it. We woke back up an hour, literally went home, took a shower, 30 minutes, went back at it. And then that day was an 18-hour day or 16 or 18-hour day.
Yeah,
you know,
at that point you don't even count. You're just like, whatever it takes to get this done.
Right.
When it's done, I go home.
Right. Exactly. And yeah, by the end of it, I was like so toast. You know, we worked a full, what a average person's full work week would be in just 2 days, you know? And, you know, but it was really that message of like, the show must go on, you know? And like, as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, like, I just want to encourage like those people that are out there listening to this that are really trying to start their own coffee roasters, to start their restaurant, start whatever business and, you know, that you have in mind that like, you know, God may have placed in your heart to start. You know, it's going to take time. It's going to take blood, sweat, and tears, like Jimmy said. And you just have to kind of go after it. Right.
There's no easy way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
There isn't like a special course or class that you can take and like, oh yeah, I'll get this done easily. And you know, that's, you got to give it your all, like literally lose yourself to the process and to make it happen, however long that is, months, years. Yeah. And when I first started, you know, it was like gross sales, $150 a day, you know, and that was like coming in at 2 a.m. to roast coffee because the unit didn't have any HVAC, no climate control.
Right.
So then I come in 2 a.m, roast coffee, open up the shop at 6, work it all day until 3 o'clock, close it, and then go home.
Yeah.
And my wife was working at Morning Bird because that was allowing me and us to do Jaunt. So yeah, it takes everything. And I think going back to your question about how did I pick Mira Mesa, you know, like I got fortunate because a few years later, I found a great house to rent here in Mira Mesa. I'm literally just 5 minutes away.
Yeah.
I've been here ever since, and
awesome.
It feels like home now.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, just a lot of things have lined up because of all those blood, sweat, and tears and endless hours of work that other opportunities or other things started happening because of it.
Yeah.
And otherwise it wouldn't have happened.
No longer making $150 gross sales anymore. And that's
gross. That's not profit.
Yeah, that's gross. That's gross.
No.
Oh man, I've heard that story though with the Unison. To go back to Unison, you know, it was like they had an opportunity to go into a small shop. I think it was like the tail end of the pandemic, you know, and they were going in with like another partner, and it was at a shop over in La Jolla, and yeah, it was like, you know, they made like $50, like $100, you know, on the day.
It's so discouraging.
And I was like, oh my gosh, like that's tough.
It brings tears to your eyes. Like,
it really does.
I put in all this work, and it's like, well, that's just one facet of the business that you did. Now there's all these other ones that are going to allow you to make it grow. You know, all the nitty gritty, you know, all the hard work, you know, how to pull shots and roast coffee and steam really nice milk and latte art. And, you know, you come up with a really good, so what? You and everybody else that's gotten into this can do that. Right. So like, how do you become relevant? Right. How do you become seen? Yeah. You know, and to be honest, COVID hit. Yeah. And pretty much everybody closed. Right. All the coffee shops closed, everybody. Yeah. And I literally just had our daughter. And I'm like, what am I going to do? Like, I have to stay open. Like, I have to work. Like, how else am I going to make any money? Like, you know, I have a baby now. Yeah. Like, I'm living in a 1-bedroom apartment in PB at this time. And it's like, we don't have family to help. My wife literally being with our baby the whole time. Wow. How hard that was on her. Yeah. And I'm like, how are we going to make any fucking money now? Yeah. Literally. Yeah. And when I say like Mira Mesa chose me because I you know, there's a Facebook group called Mira Mesa Neighbors. Yeah. And they're, you know, of course, Instagram, Facebook and all that. And I just put a post, and everybody came out. Wow. You know, and that was really touching to me. because I didn't know it was going to happen.
Yeah.
So
man, nah, you're tugging the heartstrings right now.
So
No, definitely.
all of Mira Mesa came out, and like we did like this $1 malasada thing, because I'm Portuguese, and you know malasadas originate from Portugal, and actually there's other menu items that I want to do from my background being Portuguese that hopefully we're going to implement soon. But at that time, we did that to bring people out, and you know they lined up, and that is really what propelled our business.
Yeah.
To keep going and to actually thrive when everybody else was closed.
Right.
When I thought I was going to close, like nobody knew that the government was going to put out these PPP loans and employee retention credits and all that to help out, to keep businesses afloat and whatnot. Nobody knew that. So, you know, like you got vendors like, are you going to open? Are you going to close? Like, I don't know. Like there's no right answer. I'm going to be open because I got
bills to pay. I got a daughter. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was us. That literally, like, that's us. We started Smackin' when our daughter was 6 months old. We opened doors to Smackin', and I had liquidated my entire Roth IRA. You know, I was trading at the time while going to school. And so, you know, after I quit that corporate job, because of just, you know, management and whatnot, I was working for a Fortune 500 company, and I was just like, you know, I can't do it anymore. My wife was the one that actually told me to leave the job, even though we had a daughter on the way. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to start a podcast because I'm going to teach people about business. I'm going to teach people about investing, and the importance there, because I had been doing it since 18 and I was doing really well. And so, you know, I was in a position, and, you know, I quit my job October 2018. I buy these microphones, start a podcast November 2018. I try it out. My daughter's due December 2018. And I'm like, you know what? Like, this is going nowhere. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to start a podcast. You know, a lot of people, my family and friends, they know that I'm doing well with, you know, my little side hustles and with investing, but the bigger audience doesn't know. And so, you know, my brother encouraged me to take a big leap. And, you know, that's when I went to the planning phase, and, you know, I went to prayer, and I was like, what do I do, God? How do I start? Like, what business do I need to be starting? At the time, I was cutting hair on the side. And so I was like, okay, maybe I should start a barbershop. I felt the tug, like, start a restaurant, you know, in honor to, you know, your grandma, because my grandma had always wanted to have a restaurant out here. And that's like the worst business you can possibly invest into. I
mean, any restaurant that's open and thriving, it's like, it's a miracle.
Right.
You look at the margins and the amount of staff that is needed.
Yes.
And the costs.
Yeah.
It is insane that any like restaurant is doing well. It's like miracles just happening. Like people that have not worked in the industry or even understand like coffee shops, restaurants, or anything.
Yeah.
They do not understand how hard it is to make it work.
Yeah.
And the ones that are doing well and thriving, like that's just insane. Like you can't even imagine the amount of work and just like miracles that they're actually just keep going.
Yeah.
Because anybody else, like, why the hell am I doing this for this much money? Like working 18-hour days.
We make so much gross, right?
Gross means nothing.
To make how much on the bottom line, right? And
people get blinded by the gross money, by the gross number.
Oh my
like,
goodness.
Oh my God, that's like, no.
Yeah.
Like you want to see the expenses?
Yeah.
That one's going to blow your mind too.
Right. Exactly. And so, you know, here we are, you know, we went to the planning phase from November. My daughter's due December 2018. We ended up landing the lease. I told myself, as a part of my SMART goals, was that I would need to sign a lease by February of 2019. And February 28th, 2019, I signed the lease to Smackin' location. And we went straight into construction, and we launched June 28th, 2019. And I went from having 6 figures saved and invested, could have bought maybe 1 or 2 houses,
Just put that in the S&P 500.
Right. I could have been doing a whole bunch of things. Like I could have still been trading, like all of these things. Right. And I took this big leap, you know, and launched the restaurant. I had $300 left in the bank account when I opened doors to the restaurant, and we opened on a Friday. Rent is due on the 1st. I don't know if we're going to be making $4,000 in that first weekend to, make rent,
Cover that,
right? To cover rent and to cover our, what's to come of our employees or expenses. But sure enough, like, this is where like my faith like grew exponentially, because I had no intention of starting a restaurant. I already knew as a business person, restaurant's not a great idea.
Yeah, that's not the advice you give somebody to do.
But God led me to start the restaurant and to start at the restaurant instead of starting at the barbershop. And so I did it in like obedience to that. And within the first 2 days, I made 3 months worth of sales in just the first 2 days.
That's awesome.
Because of that. And also to tie it back, one of like the keys to success. So with Keys to the City, we try to give out like a lot of, keys to success for the inspiration and empowerment of other entrepreneurs, right? And one of the key things that you said was to hop into the Facebook group of Mira Mesa Neighbors. Mine was Mira Mesa Neighbors, Chamorro people on Facebook. And, we just posted an event. We made it an event for our soft opening, and it was just a soft opening, and we had that line wrapped around, the building, people that weren't family or friends, because we only have 28 seats in the restaurant. People were, sit down inside the restaurant, and we also had people open up their trunk beds for people to go and sit out in the parking lot and share a meal together. It was the most miraculous, like unique experience that I will ever remember, because, you go from just this concept, and then, you go out on a whim and you make this, you take this big leap, you invest all of this money, my entire life savings into it, even take out a loan on top of it, coming from a family that's blue collar workers, and 9-to-5ers, and they're like, what are you doing? And, it's something my grandma wanted. Right. And it's something like God led me to. And so, we did it. And sure enough, like, it's led to that. Made it through a pandemic. Here we are 5 years later, and finally able to start this podcast studio, that I had originally wanted to have from the get-go. And, it came from the funding of the restaurant and just being obedient to that call. And that's been, running sustainably over the past year on its own. And, now we're able to be in here and to start doing, other ventures and help other businesses to, other people to build better businesses and to really enhance the community. And especially for, being a part of Mira Mesa, it's really like humbling to me to hear from you that like Mira Mesa came to, support you, even though you weren't even from Mira Mesa, knew no one in Mira Mesa. But that's the beauty of being a community builder and like wanting to be engaged in the community, is like, once you find those people, they're going to support you, and they're going to find you, like you said, like Mira Mesa found you.
Yeah. I feel like we created the local Mira Mesa coffee shop, and I hope we can continue to do that, because what Mira Mesa did for me, I don't know how I could repay more than just trying to continue doing what we're doing and bringing people together and being a hub for them.
Definitely.
Because without them, who knows what I'd be doing right now. But from what you said too, it's like it doesn't matter how you start. It's how you keep going and how you're going to finish and seeing and just keep going. Honestly, just the toughest days, those are the hardest days to get up, but those are the days that are going to be the most impactful to build that resiliency and that strength that you need, that can't be taught, that you just have to feel it. Yeah. You really have to feel it to understand it. Yeah. And it doesn't matter how much I talk about it here or people listening to hear what I'm saying, until they go through it and they actually feel it in their chest and their body and the cold sweats and like the overwhelming sensations that you have of like, oh my God, this is so hard. I don't know if I can do it. That's when you keep on going. Right. And you burst through and, you got to give it your all. But yeah, I can really resonate with what you just said as well. Yeah.
There's a Bible verse that says, perseverance produces hope and hope produces character. And so, it's just about continuing to go through those trials, knowing that the Bible also talks about like, having brothers and sisters that are going through, similar trials somewhere. Right. And so nothing new is really under the sun. And so, there's going to be those stories like, this is my first time having a conversation with you, Jimmy, and here we are, kind of had a very similar experience. We started our businesses relatively around the same time. We both had a daughter, relatively around the same time, both invested all that we could into our startup businesses all at the same time, only sticking to one location all at the same time.
Yeah.
And, it's just shown that like, you continue to persevere through those trials and, take that big leap, and here we are, years later, and we're able to really like bask in it, dwell in all that we've, successfully created. And we still have a lot of learning to go through ourselves.
Yeah.
Right?
I was about to say, like, I honestly have this whole time, I've never stopped and give myself like a pat on the back. Like, oh, like you did it. Like, good job. Like never. To me, it's like, it's not even done yet. It's like there's just so much more to it's just starting.
Yeah.
You just have so much more because once you get settled in like that and like, oh, look at me. Like I'm a big shot. It's like, no, man, you're nobody.
Yeah.
Like, just keep going.
Yeah.
It's like, cause I started with 11 credit cards and flipping it over for 0 APR and 0 PR.
Wow.
I don't advise that. But that's how I did it. That's how I was able to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, just you got to start somewhere, and you gotta keep going, and if you keep going and you make it, per se, don't ever rest on that, because the world does not care. The market does not care.
Yeah.
You just got to keep going and keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
And once you get there, just try to get better, try to elevate yourself.
And here we are, like, all this time later, is the one thing that I think that is really important to both of us is understanding that you really need a team. Like you need people behind you. So this whole time it's just been Steph and I, right? My wife and I, and same for you, right?
My wife and my staff.
It's just kind of been, and then our staff to really upkeep operations. But like on management side of things, or like kind of C-level type decision making, for us, it's been just us. We've been doing all the marketing, we've been doing all the accounting, payroll, all of these type of decision making, HR. And I think the important thing that I'm starting to realize, how I was able to get out of the business and to start working on the business, was by having a team, by being able to delegate and to trust people and to give respect to those people where credit is due. Like they can do it. They're humans. They're fully capable of doing it. And like you alluded to earlier, like maybe they're not doing it 100% the way that you would do it, but if they're hitting 60, 70, 80% of what you're able to do, there's still a lot of value there.
There's so much.
And they're still learning, right? They'll start learning themselves, and that in itself is valuable, because you're teaching them, these soft skills and hard skills that are going to be able to take them and elevate them and empower them to, like we're doing right here, is to try to empower you to make the decision to go and start that business, to go and pursue that, that business, and to make impact in your city, in your community, and, just be able to spread that love, that creativity, that mission that you have built inside you. We all have a purpose here. Like God has a plan for all of us to, work through whatever unique assignments that we have along this life journey. And as long as you just continue to, work diligently towards these things, like and you don't settle in, like you said, you're going to be well. Like you're going to have your needs met. Your need is going to be met. You may not necessarily be the multi-million-dollar billionaire, whatever, like a lot of people assume.
I wanted to add that too. Don't think like somebody else's happiness or achievements is what you need to mirror, or what you need to achieve. Like 6, 7, 8 shops. It doesn't mean I'm going to be happy with 6, 7, 8 shops, and maybe somebody else will, and that's their objective and that's their goal. But think about yourself and your well-being, your mental well-being, your physical well-being, your health, and your ambitions, and keep that in perspective, because what you see a lot of it does not, you're not just seeing, you see the achievements, right? You don't see all the hard work that was put into to see those achievements. Just be okay with not having 10 locations and having all this staff that you have to manage and all this revenue that you think people are making. It's like a lot of that is actually not real. Actually not doing that well. And a good example is like, look at all these bankruptcies that are happening. Companies in the city and big corporate companies, like don't get lost in the fog.
In the facade.
Yeah. Like, and don't measure other people, like don't measure your happiness based on what other people's achievements are. Don't get caught up in that social media world. It's so easy to do and feel like, oh, I'm not doing it right. I shouldn't do it because I can't do it this way. It's like, no, just do. Start. Yeah.
Except for these type of social media worlds where, we're actually enhancing positivity and we're trying to, really help elevate people. Because there are some people out there that are really trying to feed you like great relative advice and are really trying to help people, like us with Keys to the City and, with just like our missions with Jaunt, with Smackin', with MK Lab and MK Media, there are those people out there, but it is a lot more, to your point, difficult to find because there's a lot of negativity. There's a lot of negativity that are because people can really sell based off of that emotion,
fear,
right?
Negativity is just so easy. It's just the easiest thing to cling on to. Victimization, like, oh, pity me. And oh, I'm having such a hard day. It's like, oh man, like it's always going to be hard if that's the attitude that you have, right? No matter what, negativity will bring on more negativity.
Right. All right, one last question for you, Jimmy. Thank you so much for your time so far. But here we have a hazelnut vanilla latte with almond milk, extra shot. This is my go-to drink that I get every single time. What's your go-to drink at Jaunt's when you go in? What do you recommend for people?
Oh, honestly, I just love like our drip is really nice. Just black coffee, espresso, or like a short Americano, just espresso over ice, something simple. That's what I enjoy.
That's what you love.
I love coming up with the creative ideas for seasonal drinks and all that. I mean, they're super tasty. Yeah. I love them. We try to use real ingredients. But for me, I've learned to enjoy just black coffee.
I'm a black usually as well. So I'm going to try your drip next time. Cause my wife is like the sugary person. So she put me on the hazelnut latte.
Yeah, I don't blame her.
And I've just been on it.
Tasty.
Yeah, it's great. I love it. But yeah, thank you so much for your time. I just want to leave you off with one last thing. Matthew 5:14 says, "You are the light of the world. The city set on a hill cannot be hidden." And that's what Keys to the City is really built on, is how are you going to continue to make impact in your city? And I just want to encourage you to continue to go out into your community, to go out into your city and continue to be a light and be a positive impact, in and through your gift of being a coffee roaster and being a business owner and being a husband and a father. Just continue to do that good work, man.
Thanks. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Appreciate you.